All right, everyone, welcome to today's episode of Is It Prophecy here on Israel National Radio on Route Sheva. The show is syndicated as Messiah Hour on YouTube. Email me, messiahhour@gmail.com, and subscribe to the YouTube channel, Messiah Hour. Take a look at a lot of our previous episodes. Dr. Schroeder, Rabbi Ken Sparrow, Rabbi Yosef Mizrahi, Rabbi Lazer Brody. We have some of the biggest guests in the Jewish world on that channel, so check it out. And today we have a big guest as well, a frequent guest to this program at least once a week from Somazal.com, Rabbi David Katz. Rabbi Katz, how you doing out there?
Hi, Ari. Thanks for having me back, and I'm glad to be here.
For sure. Now, as I talked about in previous episodes, this is a very interactive show. We want to hear back from the fans, and we've been getting that. People have been emailing us not just comments of what we've done in the past, but shows that they would like to see us talk about in the future, and that's what today is about. We've got a few emails asking about the Chasidus of the Baal Shemtov, the opposition of the Gra, etc. So that's what today's episode is going to be about. Let's start first with the Vilna Gaon and the Baal Shemtov, that two camps, if you will, that dispute. So talk a bit about those schools of thought.
All right, so to get into the discussion, it's a nice layout. I really like this idea because it's very easy to express. It's a complicated argument, but it's easy to express by looking at a paradigm in basically all of Jewish history, right? I think this is also a law that if you look at anything with a small mind, and just in the little Dalit Amos that you're in, it's confusing. But if you expand it and you look at the whole timeline, you can see how it fits in, and it's not a big deal in terms of, it's not as bad as it looks. It's part of the Jewish story. So.
Okay, so talk about the introduction of 1740. What happened in that year?
Okay, so the whole Baal Shemtov, and for the sake of discussion, for the rest of the discussion, if I refer to him as Besht, it's the initial letters Baal Shemtov.
Okay.
And Vilna Gaon, the Gaon of Vilna, we call him the Gra, Gaon Rabbi Eliyahu. So for now on, just for whatever flow, Gra and Besht, Vilna Gaon, Baal Shemtov.
Okay, sounds good.
That episode takes place beginning in 1740. Okay, and that 1740 is a monster year. Monster year. You're going to have the Baal Shemtov open up his first yeshiva, and you're going to have the Vilna Gaon put pen to paper on his essential ideas of the redemption, Mashiach, and the Messianic age. So that year is just a powerful, powerful year. And that's not an accident. Not in the slightest. Now to back up again, we're going to keep backing up and oscillating back and forth to get the story right? So the concept is brought in the Zohar. That it says that they learn from the story of Noah and the well springs and the flood, that in the year 5500 to 5600 of the Jewish year, effectively 1740 to 1840, the well springs of heaven and earth will be open in immense blessings of spiritual quality and physical quality. When you go back and do your homework, you'll see that the Industrial Revolution began at that time, and it's going to culminate with Rockefeller. But I think exactly around that time, 100 years later, he's going to come on the scene. And in spirituality, what we're saying is you're going to have Judaism today. Whoever you are, wherever you were born in 1740. Whether you're a Chassid, any kind of Chasidus, Litvak, the Talmudic head, who's going to go back to the Vilna Gaon, obviously Chasidus, Baal Shemtov, thought-provoking work. You're going to go back to the Ramchal, who was just before then, based on kind of the moral thinking of about 150 years, whatever, 200 years before that. But it all came about in the 1740-ish, the first part of the 18th century. So you're going to have, the end of the Rishonim, the commentators of the Talmud. And then you're going to come into the Kabbalah age, the Sfat Golden Era, the Rizal, all those guys, Shulchan Aruch, Yosef Karo, the entire written tradition, modern, Kabbalah and Halakha. Then from that, and also thought-provoking works like the Maharal, you're going to have in the 18th century the masters of that tradition, right? It's going to be written before, and now these guys are going to take it to another level. And that's, again, the Vilna Gaon, Baal Shemtov, and everything in between. That is Judaism today. Also, the Sephardi masters were that time, the Chidah. It was just, that was who that was. When you look at today's Judaism, you can see kind of who we are, whatever it's worth. Back then, that's who they were identified as. And then again, ultimately, to finish that point, the Industrial Revolution began then, and you see today it's the industrial world, and the Jewish Torah world was born at that point in 1740.
Again, this is a Prophecy on Israel National Radio on Route Sheva. The show is syndicated as Messiah Hour on YouTube. Email me, messiahhour@gmail.com, and subscribe to the Messiah Hour YouTube channel. Again, our guest this afternoon is Rabbi David Katz. Let's talk about the concept of Zohar and prophecy, how that works.
So the Zohar, again, is mentioning this 100 years of blessings, of bounty, Shefa. In the temple show we did, we talked about Shefa. Well, this is when the Shefa started coming down, and it was not tainted. It was not made impure in any way, and that was the beauty of that time, right? It doesn't really matter who you are or what you think. At that time, you are getting the Shefa, so you better deal with it the right way. Thank God, God put guys there to deal with it. Baal Shemtov, Vilna Gaon, right? And the industrialists at that time, they did get things going. So it happened. Now, what's even more interesting is this is not an accident or a coincidence that happened. You back up, you keep backing up. 6 days of creation, day is 1,000 years, 6,000 years, Messiah comes at the end of 6,000 years. That's the idea. Now, if the Vilna Gaon happened, and the Baal Shem Tov happened, and their 100 years of prophecy, what's even more great is it's not the 100 years that really is the main thing. It's that it happened at 6 a.m. Right? The paradigm clock, 6 days of creation. So therefore, every year is about 40, or every hour is about 42 years. 5,500 Jewish calendar is 6 a.m. on the paradigm clock. The last day of the week, the day actually starts. That was the year 1740. Now back up a little bit. Who were we saying gave the inspiration to these guys? The Arizal and the Sfat Golden Era, which really inspired Judaism in every angle, happened around Chasidus Laila, which, again, in the mystical sect, learning at night is a big repair spiritually, connecting to the Shekhinah, God's presence. That happened on cue. And when you look back through Jewish history, according to the model, that according to the Jewish paradigm, 6 days, 6,000 years, every major time has been sanctified. And here's the Vilna Gaon Baal Shem Tov, and right on the noggin, 6 a.m., bam, there they are. And so this is what makes your show great, the Messiah Hour, is we're there. We are at Mincha on the 6th day, post 12:30 p.m. We are right on the mark, according to the time frame. And that's why the world is showing signs of this show. When you wouldn't have this show, maybe even 20 years ago, 30 years ago. But why is it now? Why is everyone looking now? Because the Jewish paradigm of time is always hitting the mark. And then was no different. Before then was no different. Today's no different.
Now, I know there's prophecies of end times in the book of Daniel. Is that also related to what you're discussing right now?
It is. And that's what people don't realize. When looking at Daniel, the people want to get truth from some kind of strange angles, right? It's like a joke I always make on Facebook is, Obama's a shady guy. We all know that, okay?
Right.
But I like how people post like, oh, that's it, Obama's going to jail. Conservative Bob, conspiracytheory.com found pictures of Obama fishing in some guy's backyard. Why was he doing that? It's like, you're not going to bring down the government by conspiracybob.com.
Right.
It's not going to happen. So it's, everyone knows Daniel has the time. But it's not going to be like, well, if you take like the Greek calendar and multiply by the Roman calendar, and you take like the Roman numeral, and it looks like kind of like McDonald's menu, because McDonald's is pretty, good. It's an Edomite exile. And then if you no, No, it's not how it works. So the famous ism from Daniel is, and everyone knows this, that's involved in times and yens, time times and a half. That's everyone's trying to achieve when they calculate the end.
Huh.
So what's interesting is the Vilna Gaon explains it actually in his book Kol HaTorah, right? Time times and a half. Times is 2 2000s. That's 4,000. Time is 1,000. That's 5,000. And a half is 500. 5,500. There it is. Right? And so it's brought down in the commentaries. Now, it's not the end, right? But it's a path on, or a nugget on the path to the end. When is the end? That actually is revealed by the Vilna Gaon in his commentary to Sifra and Sniusa, portion of the Zohar. The Ramban brings it also, again, embedded in the idea of 6 days, 6,000 years. What does the Vilna Gaon say? Please don't reveal the end. So it is known, but what's more known in public is the trail of breadcrumbs until today. And that is part of what Daniel is prophesying about, not just the end, but how to identify all of the ends. There's actually more than one end. And that's what he prophesies in his book.
Very interesting. So more than one end, and there is a particular format. Very interesting stuff about that. Let's talk about, you mentioned Chatzot Laila. Can you expand a little bit more about that concept?
Chatzot Laila is brought down heavily in Chasidus, apropos to our discussion, I guess, right? But it's also a Kabbalistic thing, and don't be fooled, Kabbalah is not Chasidus. They are different. I guess, just a bad analogy, but I guess it's his way of saying Muslims and Arabs are not the same, right? You think they are, but they're not.
Right, because you can have Christian Muslims, for example.
Exactly. And you can have Kabbalah that's not Chasidus, and Chasidus is not Kabbalah. But Chatzos Laila is the idea of getting up at night, just like King David was said to have done, and learning certain types of Torah to connect to God's presence, and it basically achieves tremendous repair to creation. Right? And that is the Jewish Torah mission, to repair creation, or to finish what God started, which is another way of saying the final redemption. So the Arizal was the time, or you can say the golden era of Sfat. Which, again, I refer to that a lot, and for those that don't know, just real quick, the Shulchan Aruch, the body of law that we follow today, even if we don't follow it literally, it's the emphasis of study, and whatever law you do follow came off of that in some way, shape, or form. That was written by Yosef Karo in Sfat. The Arizal was there doing his Kabbalah with Chaim Vital and Eliyahu Hanavi in Sfat. You have the biggest commentary ever in the Zohar and the Ramak, Sfat. You just had an awesome thing. I think Kabbalat Shabbat, when you go to synagogue and you sing the Psalms before the evening prayer on Erev Shabbat, that was in Sfat. That was the golden era. And as I'm here now, I can only imagine what it was like then. Just being here. But so the Arizal was kind of the gold medal or gold standard of that time. Just because Kabbalah is a little bit more attractive than Halacha in the main circles that run the world. Therefore, the Arizal brought it down, the learning at night, and he happened to be at the point of time that was at night, right? He was around, I forget which time, but let's just say for the sake of argument, between 12 at night and 2 in the morning on the paradigm clock. Figure around 1500 to 1600, do the math. And the biggest thing, we're going to introduce this now for the second half of this discussion. What the Arizal really brought, and he starts his work at Tzachayim, the tree of life. What is the nature of Tzimtzum? The theory of God creating the world, how it is, what it was, just the idea of creation. How is it possible to be with God? That was the biggest unique novelli explained by the Arizal. It happened at that point of night. That is going to be the emphasis coming out of his time and basically spanning the rest of time.
Again, this is a prophecy at Israel National Radio, Route Sheva. The show is syndicated as Messiah Hour on YouTube. Go to YouTube, type in Messiah Hour, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Our guest this afternoon is Rabbi David Katz from SolMazal.com. Rabbi Katz, let's talk about the Arizal Kabbalah and how that factors into your discussion.
So the Arizal is going to be the father of Lurianic Kabbalah. Maybe you've first seen Madonna and her little bracelet.
Right.
This is the same. Then when she's talking about Isaac, that's who she's talking about.
Huh.
So,
Interesting. Okay.
and Berg is actually buried in the spot cemetery.
Wow. All right.
Yeah. But so that his Kabbalah, the Zohar is gonna be underground until about 1200 in the medieval times. All right, then it's gonna come out slowly. Rashi had a copy. This is explicit. I think the Rambam did. Everyone else in the world will tell you he didn't. Even the Rizal says openly he didn't. I think this is just what the people do to the Rambam. I just think he did. That's my own personal shtus. But anyways, the point is it came out at that time. By the time of the Maharal of Prague, probably the greatest Jewish thinker of modern times. That's a unanimous opinion, I believe. I mean, I've never met anybody on the earth that has an issue with the Maharal. He was going to study the early Zohar teachings. He was before the Arizal. Figured that another 100-some years, Sfat Golden Age, the Ramak is going to have his commentary on the Zohar. He has a different view than the Arizal, but the Arizal is going to become just that real modern guy, right? He's the guy that is even in vogue today more than anybody else. It's just he was it. He was the guy. He was the gold standard, Coca-Cola, whatever you call it. So his Kabbalah comes out, and a main reason, our show of support for his Torah was another huge luminary, the Ramchal, Rav Moshe Chaim Luzzatto. You probably know him by Path of the Just, the Derech Hashem, the Way of God, buried in Tiberias next to Rabbi Akiva. But the Ramchal is an amazing guy. He is everyone's best friend. Nobody on the planet has issues with the Ramchal. Even though they wanted to burn him back in the day, he is the one everyone looks to. Every Baal Tshuva loves his stuff. He is going to endorse the Arizal and explain it, and spread it, open it up. He is going to be your main guy. He's going to set up the Vilna Gaon. The Vilna Gaon is going to base things off of him. And he's going to be the real predecessor to Chasidus. He's going to be the one that turns the Arizal Torah into something Hasidic. Now, you can take that one of two ways, obviously, hence the discussion. Chasidus or Vilna Gaon. Two schools of thought. I think they're the same, but that's already letting the cat out of the bag and how the discussion ends. But for all sake of discussion and intents and purposes, it's a machlekes, it's a shift, it's a schism. How to take the Arizal. The Ramchal is going to leave you this way or that way, and you're going to go either Vilna Gaon or Baal Shemtov for the sake of the discussion.
All right, now let's talk about from the Ramchal, how there's a branch out to the Gra. Talk about how that worked.
So I like to joke about this. This is a half joke, right?
Sure.
So I like to say that I'm a student of the Vilna Gaon, right? 'Cause this is how it goes, right? This is a half joke. The Ramchal, the Vilna Gaon says of the Ramchal that he was the greatest theologian that ever lived, right? In terms of what is Judaism, what is the mission of the Jewish people. Right, so the Vilna Gaon in his mystical Sfarim, in his works of Kabbalah, he basically quotes the Ramchal's sources and ideas verbatim, but not in terms of parroting. You see they're in the same world, dealing with the same issues, different works, different people, but you can see they're on the same page completely. It's obvious. So then the Vilna Gaon has his student Chaim Volozhin. Chaim Volozhin opens up the famous Volozhin Yeshiva, which is the Vilna Gaon methodology in learning, and mainly in Talmud, also in Kabbalah. But then Chaim Volozhin's son takes over as the Rosh Yeshiva. Then he is going to give over to the Netziv, the greatest Rosh Yeshiva in the Volozhin history. The Netziv will tell you that his yeshiva existed only for the sake of Rav Kook, the Rav Kook being there. Rav Kook's greatest Talmud was Rav Hutner. Rav Hutner was awesome, of Chaim Berlin, a great thinker, and he was totally involved with the Maharal thought. Rav Hutner's one of his most famous Talmidim was Rav Freifeld of Far Rockaway in the 60s, kind of like your offbeat alternative from Chabad at that time. I think Bob Dylan was with him at that time. And then one of his top students was Rav Weingart of Sfat Shalom Rav, and I have the most tenure with Rav Weingart. So going back, you can say, half joking, I'm a student of the Vilna Gaon and influenced by the Ramchal. Half joke, but yet it does work out.
All right, last question we have for this segment. You talked about how that branched out to the Gra. How does it directly then branch to the Baal Shemtov?
Right, so just to re-emphasize, the Gra thing, going back to the Ramchal was great in Kabbalah and thought. The Gra was another major cog in that. And you see the Gra's lineage, and most famously by the Brisker learning there of Talmud, like the Harvard of Talmud, that ultimately is Vilna Gaon style, and mainly it is the sharpness of mind of the Ramchal. Now, switch gears, and let's go mystical. The Ramchal is going to teach you that Kabbalah can be a thing. It doesn't have to be some kind of educational tool. It's a thing. It does something. It's dynamic. That idea of taking the Arizal's Torah and making it something dynamic and real, you can live it. That's the definition of Chasidus. Something Kabbalistic and mystical, world-changing. You can live. You can do it. It's a service of God. So the Ramchal is going to flip it over. Baal Shemtov is going to take it, and he's going to be that Vilna Gaon on top of the Ramchal again. Take it to something completely same page, not a contradiction. He's going to give it over to Maggid of Mezrich, right? He's going to just turn it over again into his own thing. Then the Hasidic masters are going to come, and you have a whole new existence of Kabbalistic thought, different than the Vilna Gaon, rooted in the Ramchal. I think Breslov Chasidus openly endorses learning the Ramchal for this reason.
All right. That concludes part one of today's episode with Rabbi David Katz from SolMazal.com. You're listening to Is It Prophecy on Israel National Radio, Arutz Sheva, and the show is syndicated as Messiah Hour on YouTube. Go to YouTube, type in Messiah Hour with Ari Louis, subscribe to the channel, check out our previous videos. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or complaints, it is a Jewish country. Again, email me, messiahhour@gmail.com. As you see, today's episode has been inspired by some of our listeners who want to give us feedback of what they would like to hear in the future. If you feel the same way, email us, messiahhour@gmail.com, and we'll try to do more episodes that the fans like. That's the point of doing the show, is to make the fans happy and educate them. We'll take a quick break. We'll have part two on the other side. This is It Prophecy on IsraelNationalRadio.com.